Let me go. Go find a seat. I'm gonna find a seat. Let me go.
Well, hi, I'm down here on South Bank at Chinese New Year Festival in Melbourne. It's a little bit crazy down here. I can't turn me around. Anyway, so yeah, look, I just thought I'd pop down for Chinese New Year, check it out. There's lots of food on the go, as you'd expect. My tip for avoiding the delicacies on offer is to eat before you come. You may have noticed that I posted my enormous breakfast again after my workout. So that's how I avoid all the temptation. Wow, look at the queues here. This is insane. Anyway, so it's the end of week 2, and this week I'm going to, very shortly, I'll go through exactly how I set up my diet. So I'll go through how I set my calorie level, my macros, and then how I actually do the cutting. So I'll go through all of that, and then I'll do my weekly check-in. So this week I've been weighing myself every day to see, basically just to sort of show you how the scales lie, first of all, and how you can then use them to gauge progress overall, and how one day, between one day and another doesn't necessarily make a difference. It's the overall progress that you're looking for. So I'll go through that as well. And then, based on the results of the check-in, I will then explain what I'm going to do for next week. So I'm just going to carry on enjoying Chinese New Year, and then we'll get stuck into the rest of it very shortly. Okay, I hope you're having a good day wherever you are. Happy New Year. Hi, I just thought I'd give you a breakdown of how I set up my competition diet. Now, you're probably looking at this in absolute horror and going, what the hell is all of this? Now, I'm a bit of a numbers geek, so this all makes sense to me, and I actually really enjoy just playing around with the numbers. But let me explain it to you. You obviously don't have to do anything close to this. Do what works for you, but I actually just enjoy doing this. So over here on the left, I've got my sort of current body weight stats. So I started my prep at 62 kilos. My last DEXA, this is actually wrong. I think I was actually sitting at 52 lean body mass, and my target body weight on stage is going to be 54, maybe 54 and a half. Okay, so that puts my current body fat round about 17%, which I'm pretty happy with. Given the ups and downs I've had this year, I'm quite happy with the fact that I've been able to hold at that level. Now, my target body fat, I want to be at, my target body fat percent, I want to be at 9% this year. I want to be absolutely shredded, which means I've got 8.7% body fat to lose, and overall that gives me 8 kilograms of fat to lose. So look, that's pretty doable in the 20 weeks that I've got to do it. Next, I move on to my calories. Now, you've probably heard of these. These are the 3 main ways of calculating your base metabolic rate and your maintenance level of calories: Mifflin Central, Harris Benedict, and Catch McArdle. Some DEXA scans also do BMRs and maintenance calories. And then you've got the good old-fashioned bodybuilding way of doing it, which is your body weight times 10 to get your BMR. And then to get your maintenance level for females is generally body weight times 14. So that gives me the sort of the bodybuilding estimates. Now you can see there's actually quite a bit of variation between all of those different calculations. So what I do is I average it out. So that gives me the best generic idea of what my calorie levels should be and where I should never get down to. Okay, so once I've done that, then we move over to the left here, over to the right, and we've got calories, macros, and all sorts of other exciting things. Now, when I start my my diet, I like to be at a 50, 25, 25 split. So this is my macros. It could be 40, 30, 20. Doesn't really matter, whatever works for you. And you can see over in this chart here, when I change the macros in here, it recalculates the calories and grams of fat, protein, fat and carbs I need per day to fit into this calorie target. Okay, so I'll set it back to my 50, 25, 25. And you can see that it's recalculated. Now, just below that, then I've worked it out in grams per pound. As long as my protein grams per pound doesn't go below 1.4, I'm happy. Fat of 0.4 grams per pound is absolutely the ideal amount for somebody my age. And then the carbs, really, that just makes up the rest of it. So I don't really care what the carbs are, because those are what I take out first. So now, once I've got the base set up, and where I'm sitting at the moment, I'm just under maintenance, but just above the 5% deficit. Okay, so that I've got the calculations of all of the deficits of what the calorie levels should be. Now, really, I don't like going below 15% deficit. To me, that's quite low. I definitely do not want to get into 20% deficit territory or above, and I will certainly never ever take myself down to the BMR level ever. Okay, so right now I'm sitting at about 19. I'm averaging about 1950 calories a week. So somewhere between maintenance and 5% deficit is quite good right now. Now, before I reduce my calories to the 5% deficit level, what I'll do is I'll actually flip my macros. So what do I mean by that? Well, I set the carbs at 25%. So what I can do is I can do 4 changes of 5% carbs with a corresponding 4 5% increases in my protein to get me to my ideal macro split before I need to drop the calories. So what I'll do, my first change, if I haven't hit target weight this week, what I will do is I'll do a 5% cut in my carbs, take that down to 20%. But what I'll do is I'll increase my protein to 55%. So I haven't dropped any calories, I've flipped my macros. And then if I don't hit target weight again, I'll reduce my carbs to 15 and take my protein up to 60. And then I'll go to 10%, 65, and finally I'll go to 5% carbs and up to 70% protein. Now, a lot of you won't go this high, but this is just what works for me, and I can't emphasize enough, you have to do what works for your body. I happen to be a very good protein responder. This is why I go so high on the protein. Now, all of these carbs here, by the time I get to 5% carbs, all of the carbs will be coming from fibrous vegetables, dark green, leafy, cruciferous vegetables. So this is why the volume of food I eat increases towards the end of my prep, because to get 5% of my carbs from basically stuff that's just made of fiber is incredibly difficult. So you have to eat more. The benefit of that, of course, is that my body has to work super hard to get through all of that. So it just burns through it. So it forces my metabolism to absolutely crank along to the max. So this is where I will end up, 70, 25, 5. And I will get to that macro split before I do another drop. Now, if I get to that split after 4 changes, and let's just say I'm at the 5% deficit level, if I'm not dropping when I'm at that macro split, only then will I start cutting calories. Okay, so I flip my macros first to my ideal split, which is this, before I drop my calories. I always want to be eating as much food for as long as I possibly can before I start cutting out food. And protein is absolutely the last food I will ever cut. Okay, so that's how I structure my diet. And then just as a final little thing down here, I've actually, like I say, I'm such a geek here. I've actually calculated my whole expected weight loss. I've always said that I aim for between quarter and half a kilo a week. So you can see there that I'm sort of sitting on the higher end of that scale at about 0.4. If I get 1 or 2 good weeks, then that'll probably come down, but that's very doable without too much effort. So that's me all set up and ready to go. And yeah, when I weigh in at the end of this week, we'll see how I'm tracking and whether I'm on target. Okay, so I've just explained how I set up my diet, set up the macros, and how I actually do the cut. So let's do this week's check-in. Now, I weighed myself every day this week, um, just to show you how your weight can fluctuate daily and how it's actually not an issue. So if we look at Monday, 23rd of January, I'm nearly 63 kilos. And if you remember from the previous 2 days, like Saturday, the 21st of January, I was nearly down at 61 kilos. So how is it possible that I've put on 2 kilos in 2 days? Well, it certainly isn't fat, that's for sure. You don't put on 2 kilos of fat that quickly. So as it turns out, it's ladies' week. So it's potentially a hormonal issue and water retention. And as you can see, the Tuesday, it did go down, and on Wednesday it held steady, and then I did drop on Thursday just a little bit. So I still had that pattern that I had last week. So I started higher at the early week, and then I hit my low point on Thursday. Now Friday I popped up a little bit, and you can see that on Sunday I've also popped up a little bit more. Now this is not fat, so I'm not stressed about this at all. I just wanted to illustrate how your weight can fluctuate during the week. So have I gone on my diet? Well, as I explained in how I set my diet up, I'm kind of just below maintenance, and I'm just above the 5% deficit. So I've hit that target bang on pretty much. It probably could go a little higher, so we may look at that next week. Calories per day, looks like there's beginning to get a bit more consistency there. It's still not ideal, so I'll have to work on that. And I just want to explain the lower days. What I've been doing is I've been resting on Wednesdays. That's been my rest day. So on those days, I've been following an Ayurvedic detox uh, a food plan. So there's a particular dish called khichdi, and I just have breakfast, lunch, and dinner only with this dish khichdi. So because I'm only eating half the amount of meals that I would usually do, then my calories are much lower. But it's all very carby, and it happens to coincide with being the day before Legs Day, and then on Legs Day is also my refeed day, which accounts for the low calories followed by the spike. And then just here's my sort of macro breakdown, and you can see on the sort of I was going to say on the 26th, I was a little bit naughty there, that big green spike there. I did train. I had a hard training session, so I treated myself to pancakes because it was Australia Day. So that's a little bit naughty. We need to really watch that and rein that in. Okay, so how am I looking? Unfortunately, week 1 photos are a little bit fuzzy, but I think you can just about tell, particularly from the side poses, that I'm not looking quite as thick in the middle. So it looks like I am starting to come in, even though the weight is not changing on the scales. Can't really see much, but again, you can see from the side pose that it potentially is coming a little bit. Okay, so what am I going to do about next week? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm actually not going to drop any calories, but what I'm going to do is, instead of the Ayurvedic day where I have the lower calories, I'm actually going to make sure that I keep the diet exactly the same as I do on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. So that's very, very high fibrous vegetables and the high protein. So basically all I'm going to do is take out the carb day, but it will actually increase my calories overall for the week. But because it switches from a very carby focus to a much more protein and vegetable based focus, then it should mean my body will have to work a lot harder. So that's the only change I'm going to make this week, and then we'll see what that brings. Now, I am actually also going to record a whole day's food. Given the fact that I've actually set it up, I thought it might be useful if you saw what a whole day's food actually looks like. So I will do that, and then I will post another video on that. Okay, so we'll keep you posted.